Hello, I'm United States Representative Kathy Castor. I'm proud to capture oral histories of military veterans from the Tampa Bay area as part of the Veterans History Project to ensure that we memorialize the stories of local heroes who've served America. These stories of honor, service, and sacrifice will be preserved in the Library of Congress for generations to come. If you know a veteran whose story should be told, please contact my office. Now join me in saluting another proud veteran from our Tampa Bay community. And to all veterans, thank you for your service and sacrifice.
So, Mr. Butler, for the record, can you just state your name, your branch of service, the highest rank you attained, and the conflicts that you served in?
My name is Jim Butler. My nickname in the Marine Corps was Smeds Butler. I was United States Marine Corps. I served from 1965 through December of 1970. I was in the Vietnam War. I spent 13 months in Vietnam in what is called I Corps. I Corps is the northernmost province in Vietnam. It was divided up into 5 corps. The Army was down in 2, 3, 4, and 5 corps, and we were up in I Corps. I Corps is right below the demilitarized zone, which is called the DMZ. DMZ is where it separates the North Vietnam from South Vietnam, and we were right on that border. Some of the places you may have heard of there are Con Thien, Khe Sanh, Dong Ha, Quang Tri. Alpha 1 is a base camp where you put Marines and then resupply them, and they fight their tails off every day. Alpha 2 is right there on the DMZ. It was my duty as a helicopter pilot to not only resupply those Marines in the CH-46, which is a Boeing Vertol-built tandem rotor helicopter that went into existence basically, or started being usable in about 1962. By the time I went over to Vietnam in 1967, it had been pretty much perfected except for one small problem. The small problem was that the aft section, which houses your rear transmission, a tandem rotor means you have 2 rotor heads, one on the front of the aircraft that sits right over the pilots, and one on the back that houses, in the section of the aircraft that houses your 2 jet engines, your transmission, and it kind of runs the whole shooting match. That's called Section 410, is onto the rest of the fuselage. The fuselage is where we carried the troops. That's where they sit. At that time, it was designed to carry about 16 combat-equipped troops on the right type weather and with a little bit of fuel, very little fuel. But Section 410 was having a problem in that the vibrations from the turning was tearing it off, and in flight it was falling off. Well, when your Section 410 falls off, your aft transmission and your 2 engines fall off, so you can't fly. So we were having people killed quite a bit on that. So when I went to Vietnam, the CH-46 was what we called down, meaning then that it was not flyable. They were putting a modification program in where they were beefing up the Section 410 so it would stay on and continue to fly. So I flew the CH-34, which is a single rotor piston driven aircraft. The 46 is 2 jet engines. The 34 is just a piston driven, and it could carry about 3 troops. I flew that for 2.5 months, learned to fly in Vietnam in that. And what I found out is it took you 3 to 5 trips to get all the people out, when in a 46 you could have gotten them out in one trip. So when the 46s came back up, they asked me if I wanted to stay in the 34s or go back to 46s. I went back to 46s so I could take them all out at once. We could take out, and on a hot day, we could only take out about 9. But I flew most of my missions in Vietnam in the CH-46. We went over there. There were 5 of us that went to Vietnam that had been through basic school, OCS, basic school, and flight school together. We always finished the highest in the class and all of that. When we got ready to, they go pipelines going through the Marine Corps. You have a pipeline, jets and helicopters. The helicopters, you didn't really want to get in them because you wanted to be a jet jockey with that good-looking zip suit, you know. And so we were all going for jets, except it's also the needs of the service. So when we went through, although we had the higher grades, the pipeline for jets was closed and we all went helicopters. There were 5 of us. We were cocky. We were good. We knew we were good. We knew we were the best. Nobody could carry our jock straps. I'm sorry, Congresswoman, that's what we called them over there. And when we went to Vietnam, 2 of our guys got Hueys, gunships for the Marine Corps, and the rest of us got transport, our medevac recon job. We went over, we were called the Fearless 5. And it was Jimmy Cawley, Tony Carter, Johnny Barnes, and Dave Collin and myself. The first month we were there, my best friend, Tony Carter, got killed. He was blown up during the Tet Offensive, or the beginning of the Tet Offensive, when he was carrying a general in his Huey, and they blew the whole aircraft up. So instead of the Fearless 5, we became the Fearful 4. After that, a month and a half later, Jimmy Cawley got killed. So we kind of got the impression that maybe we weren't invincible, that this was a real war, that things were pretty tough. But we all continued to fly more and more in order to take up the slack for the guys and in their name. And I flew all over I Corps. Made a lot of great friends. Nothing like the people you meet in the Marine Corps. They're really just, you become closer than you'll ever know, than you thought was possible. I thought you were close to the guys on the football team when you all played together. Well, you're closer when each person has the life of the other person in their hands, and you're all working together to save other people. And that was our job in Vietnam, I felt, was to save the lives of those Marines on the ground, to make sure they had resupplies, made sure when they got shot that we could take them in and out, make sure that the recon teams were put in the proper places and had the proper protections so that they could see where the enemy were coming from. So that's basically was my job in Vietnam.
And so you said a lot of the guys who went over with you in the Fearless 5 were your close friends.
They were my closest.
And then you grew up in Tampa, and were they all from Tampa with you? They all go to high
None
school?
of them were from Tampa.
Okay.
Jimmy Cawley was from Pennsylvania. Tony Carter was from Fort Lauderdale. Johnny Barnes was from Mississippi. And Dave Collin was from Ohio, and I was from Tampa.
Okay.
But we just bonded together in the Marine Corps.
And so what was it like when you were growing up in Tampa, and when were you born?
I was born in December the 9th, 1942 in Panama City, Florida. When I was 5 years old, my dad moved our family because of economic conditions down to Tampa. He was a carpenter. He then became a builder. And I grew up, I went to, first of all, Tampa Bay Boulevard for the first grade, went to Roosevelt Elementary School for the second grade, and then switched. They kicked me out of Roosevelt in the second grade, and I went to Del Mabry Elementary School and went the rest of the second grade through the sixth grade at that, and then I went to James Madison Junior High School, and then Plant High School, and then the University of Florida.
And so did you have any family members who were in the military that influenced you to join?
Yes, both my uncles were Army guys, and my dad had been in the Navy. My one uncle was very quiet about his. He never told anybody about it except me, and he had won a Silver Star over in Europe in the Army.
And so how did you end up joining the Marine Corps? Because it's my understanding that you came in as an officer. Is that correct?
Yeah. The way I joined it is after football, after I couldn't play at the University of Florida because of a leg injury, I went through and I felt that I wasn't challenged in anything. And I was walking down the campus one day, and here's this poster of this Marine aviator looking good. I could see myself looking good in that uniform he was in. And so I walked in and I said, "Hey, tell me about the Marines." And so the guy told me about it, and he told me about the PLC law program and the aviation program. You had to test for the aviation program, and at that time I had never flown in an aircraft. But I knew I wanted to be an aviator because I would look good in that flight suit that guy was wearing. So I took both tests and I passed them. And so I opted for law. I was a senior at that time at the University of Florida. And I went to OCS after my senior year, 12 weeks at Quantico, Virginia, 2 6-week courses. I took them both in the same summer. And I finished #1 in the OCS program, which was pretty remarkable because when I went in, I wasn't in very good shape, but they got me in shape. Finished #1, was commissioned, went back to law school. And all my buddies, when they got out, they went straight into the Corps, or some of them went into the Corps, and they were calling me and telling me, boy, what a wussy I was for not going ahead and served. And, you know, I was going to miss the war. The Vietnam War had started kicking up, and so I looked at it, and I called up and I asked the monitor. They have a monitor telling you what you can do, and I asked my monitor, if I finish law school, where will I go to fight? They said, go to fight. I said, yeah, when will I go to Vietnam? No, you won't go to Vietnam, he tells me. You will go to Okinawa. I said, I didn't know we were fighting anybody on Okinawa. I joined the Marine Corps to fight. And he says, no. He says, no, you'll be a lawyer. So you'll just be on Okinawa and you defend and prosecute these Marines that have problems. So I said, well, what if I don't? What if I finish? Can I then go aviation after law school? And they said, no, you've got to be a lawyer. It's the needs of the service. So I said, well, what happens? How do I get to go to the war? Said you'd have to not be a lawyer. So I activated my commission. Thought I would go straight to flight school since I'd already passed the aviation stuff. But instead, the Marine Corps sent me to basic school, which is a 6-month ground course where you're trained to be a ground officer. And so I had to go through ground school, and I didn't finish number 1 there. I finished in the top 8. But again, I hadn't, I've led the night fight, which is the most leadership course where you go at night and you have to stage a whole battalion and have them online fighting. And so then I had to re-earn getting in flight school, went to flight school, and we went through in 13 months instead of the 18 months that it usually took. They were the needs of the service. They were in a hurry to get us over there. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah. And do you remember any drill instructors or anything in particular from your time in training? Anything maybe you found exciting or funny, or any that got on top of you?
We had one drill instructor that just loved to hit me in the stomach. I guess I looked like a guy that needed to be hit. And he'd come up and he'd look around and then he'd pop me in the stomach. And, then he'd get in my face. Of course, I had a dad that was kind of a yeller, so that didn't bother me so much. But the spitting when he was doing it, that kind of made me mad. So he kept on messing with me. That was in the first 6 weeks of the OCS program. He kept messing with me, and then we went on a 30-mile march, 2-day march. We came back to the barracks and stripped off my gear, and they said, "Hey, you've got such and such duty, so you got to go clean up the mess hall." So I just said now. So I put on some other gear and went and left my stuff, came back, and I had been written up by this little drill instructor. He was about 5'6", Napoleonic complex, And so he had been in my face the whole time. So I went, and you're not supposed to approach him. And I went to their hooch, where the lieutenant was. He was a sergeant. And I went, bap, 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 knocked on the door. "Candidate Butler requests permission to speak. Sergeant Davis." Request denied. I said, "Damn it, you get your little ass out here." So that we're going to get this right now, And so the lieutenant says, "Sergeant, go talk to him." And ordered him to. So he came out, and I said, "Let me tell you something. I've done everything in the world that I can, but you got something wrong." I said, "Let's go out and let's just have it on. Let's see who." He says, "If you whip my ass, I'll quit the Marine Corps. If I whip yours, you can get off my ass, So he says, "Candidate, you're out of line." And after that, he never hit me again. So that was one of the things. We had a guy named Skeeto in OCS. Old Skeeto couldn't do anything right. And they used to call him Skeeto. "Oh, Skeeto." They really were on him. And Skeeto was slow. He was not very strong. Couldn't do the rope climb. We did a march where we had to carry ammunition and everything, and he was in my 6-man team, and I was the leader of the team, and I would carry his part for him. Then when we got to the rope, I carried him up the rope. And I think that's why I finished number 1. You know, it's because old Skeeto helped me get there. And we had pugil sticks. I don't know if you know what a pugil stick is. It's your bayonet training. And you basically are hitting each other with the pugil sticks. And I could whip everybody. And there was one guy that was a boxing champion from New York. His golden gloves, and he was good. He was Big Dutton, big old boy. And old Dutton and myself were squared off against each other. He was supposed to just kill me. I hit him with an uppercut and knocked him out. You know, and it's not supposed to knock you out because it's padded. And he still calls me and says, toughest guy I've ever seen. You know, that's some of the things. You know.
And then after you finished your training, and did you go immediately to Vietnam, or did you have like a break in between when they deployed you?
I went to New River right after flight school, and that's up in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is not a place you want to be if you're a bachelor. The women are all married that are decent looking. So I'd go on cross countries. I got in a lot of flying time. I'd go any place I could to get out of there. Our helicopter squadron was frozen in place, and they were going to go over on a LPH, a landing party helicopter. They were going to cruise over. But Johnny Barnes and myself, we couldn't stand it there. So 2 married guys had orders to go over. And what we did is we took their orders. So we went early, so we only spent 4 months in New River. And then we were in Vietnam.
And what do you remember from your time in Vietnam? Like, what experiences or people you met really stood out to you?
Just about all of them. I mean, there were some great people over there. Every man was doing his job. The ones that showed any fear were the married guys that had kids at home, that they were afraid they weren't going to get back. We had people flying missions that there was no way you could come back from, and they came back from them. Had one CO, CO, commanding officer, named Smilinitz, that he let me kind of do my thing. I was a captain. We had all these majors that had come in that were fixed wing pilots, and they expected to just take over the squadron. And I was the head test pilot. I was the aircraft recovery officer. I was the safety officer, and I was the leader of all the flights, all the gaggles. At one time, I led 49 helicopters into Thong Duc Ridge. This lieutenant colonel, in the briefing in front of the general of the 1st Marine Air Wing, because we had to coordinate how we're going to get the troops in and how we're going to do the refueling and all this, and we were briefing it. And I was a captain, and I was appointed to lead them all. This lieutenant colonel says, I will not fly behind a captain. I'm a lieutenant colonel. I should lead this. And the general's aide says, sir, you won't fly behind Smeds? No. I says, well, that's too bad then. By the way, you're no longer the CO of your squadron. This was a squadron that came down from the north to go with us. You're no longer a CO. The major is now your CO. Major, will you fly behind Smeds? Yes, sir. You will do. So, we led 49 aircraft in. We went out. We went up and we circled while they were shooting big rounds from the New Jersey, big artillery rounds, and trying to blow these guys off the side of the hill. Then they put in the fixed wing with blueies, big fire bombs, kind of like the one went off in Afghanistan, but not nearly that big. And you think, boy, nobody could live through that. So we were up there, and we had a secret channel we went to. We went to our secret channel as we're up circling, so we could talk to one another. When we went up, they were playing a promenade to us for us. They had our channels before we had them. They had such sophisticated equipment they got it from the British. And I went down, and I was flying down towards the, up when we were circling, it was dun, 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 dun. Just real nice music, you know. Then when I started going down, making my flight approach with my wingman, they started playing da 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 da, charge of light bullet grenade. And I'm laughing as I'm flying in there. I said, these guys are funny. As the bullets they were shooting from every place in the mountain, you know. But they were ahead of us. They were hard. They were really tough little son of a guns. They were tougher than nails. Yeah, very industrious.
And then, did you guys get free time very often to go on leave when you were stationed over there? Or?
Well, I was one of the lucky ones in that, when I say lucky, when I took 57 hits, the first time, it was early in my, the Tet Offensive was in February, and they sent me to Australia. So I got to meet all those beautiful Australian women. There were 5 Australian women for every man. And they were beautiful. So I went there, and then I was sent again to Hong Kong for an R&R. That was my regular R&R. And then I went on a buying trip to Okinawa. Then I did the yearbook for a cruise book for our tour. And I went to Okinawa again. And then the end of my tour, they sent me out. I was out 5 times.
And then, and while you were in Vietnam, just trying to click my thoughts here. Did you, prior to leaving, it's my understanding that you left with the most missions flown in helicopter.
At that time, in one tour, yes.
Did they give you any recognition for that, or something of that nature?
They gave me a Navy commendation with the Combat V for all the things I had done. That was just an overall decoration for all, you know. Of course, they gave me other decorations for things that I, you know, individual missions and stuff I flew.
I believe you're a very, very decorated Marine Corps aviator. So if you feel comfortable, I know you're a very modest guy.
Modest? Who told you that? Come on now, Jake. Don't blow the smoke on me.
If you wouldn't mind, would you you can feel free to list your off the top of your head the awards you've received.
I have 1 Silver Star. I have 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses. The Silver Star is the 3rd highest medal the nation gives. Distinguished Flying Cross is right below that. I have 2 of those. I have 2 Single Mission Air Medals, which is a step down. In between that is a Bronze Star, and then the Air Medals. 2 Single Mission Air Medals. That's just in the aviators unit. That's just below the Distinguished Flying Cross. And I have 49 Strike Flight Air Medals for missions flown. I have a Navy commendation with Combat V. And I have various other unit citations and things that they gave us over there. Something like 57 total.
And while you were over in Vietnam, did they give you a leave to go back to the States for holidays, or were you still?
No.
Okay. So what did you do then with your unit during like Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Well, let's see, Thanksgiving, we were doing a strike up around Hill 55 with the South Vietnamese, and we put all of our sea rats in a helmet, heated them up, and put them together and made us a little stew. And that was our Thanksgiving dinner. Christmas, I think we were fighting. I can't remember any. We didn't have any special hot food or anything for us. We would take sometimes take hot food out to the guys in the field, but we didn't get it. We gave it to them. But we had a chow hall, which the food wasn't too bad. You know, if you like I don't know if you know what shit on a shingle is. You will when you go to college. It's this ground up beef with gravy slapped on a piece of bread, and that's your breakfast. You know, during Vietnam, we were short on rations, so we got what do you call it? Instant eggs. No, we didn't have any eggs. They powdered eggs. Got those. Felt lucky to get them. But that's the thing about it is I didn't lose, my metabolism was different than most people. I didn't lose much weight over there. Other guys lost a lot of weight because it worried them. I guess I was too dumb to be worried enough to lose weight.
And did you get to write letters to your family or any chance to phone home while you were over there?
We could write letters, but I never phoned. Last letter I wrote, I think, was to my girl back at a home who had already gotten married, telling her that Tony had died, Tony Carter had died. And I said I couldn't think of anything worse than having him die. You know, and then after that, I didn't feel like really telling everybody what was happening. I didn't think it did their psychic very much good for me to tell them what I was going through on a daily basis. So I kind of didn't have much communication with the family.
And what was it like when mail came in? Was everyone really excited, or how did everyone kind of?
Well, we were flying most of the time, and so we would get our mail. We wouldn't just have a mail call like you're thinking about. You see in the ground pounders, that's when we would fly it in the mail bag to them. They would get theirs that way, but ours would be there when we got home, or got back. And so, you know, I never got that much mail. My like I told you about my family was not a writing type family. They just. I think they kind of were superstitious and thought too much about if they communicated too much with me, that might bring me bad luck.
Did the group of three from the Fearless Five, did you guys stay together throughout your time in Vietnam?
David Collin went up to Quezon and became a forward air controller. Johnny and I stayed together until he left to go to Japan to work with on the mod program for the helicopters as a test pilot. It was between the two of us. Since he was married and had my godson, I told him to go because he'd be able to see his wife. And I stayed back and finished my tour. Johnny was killed the year after we got back. David lived up until about 5 years ago. I'm the only one left.
For the future generations that might watch this interview, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. Whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Don't hold back. Don't depend on the government to do things for you. You know, if we we were not very fond of our president at that time, Lyndon Baines Johnson, because he quit bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail and let the North Vietnamese all come down. So just give it everything you got on everything. If you start something, finish it right, and don't go the wrong path. There's always two paths you can go. If you choose the wrong one and find yourself on that path, it's not too late to back up. You know, I've had nephews that one of them was really going bad, and I got on him and gave him a job in my law firm, and now he's one of the most outstanding individuals ever. He runs the firm. So just keep it going forward.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Butler. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, buddy.